Islam and the Future of Tolerance. A dialogue, Sam Harris and Maajid Nawaz. Now, it half doesn't sound like Maajid Nawaz was ever really a Muslim to begin with, but let's start with Sam Harris. He opposes Islam largely because of, news stories. The both of them do. And it's not really a direct thing. Sam Harris is known for basically, he doesn't want to believe in a God, or he says he doesn't believe in a God, because that would imply his whole life would have to be towards God, and therefore you can sort of say that Islam, in a way that doesn't really get into the whole blood and soil thing, and therefore it's not bound by any psychological type either, that it sort of lays down a way to, dedicate your whole life to this God who created you and the natural whatever. So I understand why Sam Harris is particularly against that. Now, Maajid Nawaz, he doesn't put the blame so much on religion. He kind of, if you follow some of his reasoning, rather than being towards secularism and Western democracy, rather than just democracy in itself, which, I live in a country that has never been a democratic country. Democratic Party, right? But not the, nowadays they have far more control than their share, but so when a group of people get together, the consensus. So if enough Muslims say something, it's somehow Islam, but that doesn't, quite pan out, right? And if you look deep into the statistics, if you say, well, maybe not so much the Western armies and stuff, they're not as supported by the Muslims. Well, a lot of that's because of the ethic outright. And, the majority of people in Western countries that are secular support what would be considered war crimes if it was anybody but their group. You think, these people must be a lot better. Now, there are a lot of issues, and one of the issues is not that they're against progress. Certainly science has its role. Thinking out things continues to have its role. It's progress that isn't guided by anything other than mechanical ascendancy in terms of just bigger and better, So regarding what it does for your psychology, regarding what it does for the environment, regarding the rights and respects of your neighbors, that's kind of left to the side, right? But they're complaining about groups or faiths or whatever that have less problem with the violence and the sexism and the racism and stuff like that. Now, is any of that supported by the religion? They can't really make that point. And to say, we can bomb, we don't have to get the children out of here or whatnot to bomb this area, or even find out if it's a combatant target. And on the other hand, criticize people for being willing to cut heads and hands and stuff in the middle of battle, to punish criminals, to make their society so much safer in certain regards. It just doesn't really make sense. Now, do they have to imitate one cultural way or the other? No. You can see how a lot of these people just blend right on in. Maajid Nawaz isn't as disrespectful as Sam Harris is. Now, when I say disrespectful or blasphemous or something like that, I don't mean just somebody being different. I mean, there's there's an approach to being different, right? And he understands a lot of it is this post-colonial, well, he doesn't quite describe it that way, right? But a lot of it is this post-colonial stuff. Some of it's just pretty much since World War II. Some of it's, hundreds of years old. Some of it's rather recent. Something gets put on TV enough till the point where people start being violent as a reaction when they didn't even think to be violent, like the whole cartoonist thing, right? And let's be real, before the Quran began to be taught and practiced to one degree or another in a lot of these Arab and other areas, some problems existed. And some of those problems were remembered and brought back. Some people, as soon as Muhammad died, they were ready to turn their heels, right? But tolerance, forcing people to accept your way as we got to enforce secular values. People were just waiting for Turkey to allow freedom again, right? And using terms like Islamist and jihadist and stuff like this in inappropriate ways doesn't help the matter either. Now, does a person have to live in a Muslim majority country to be under Sharia? In terms of Sharia being the middle path law, or whatever law you consider ideal, but in the Islamic context of this is what came through Muhammad? No. Actually, in a lot of instances, it's actually probably easier to live under Sharia if it's not a Muslim majority, because then you have this, sometimes you even have an elite priesthood that has written their laws into the thing, rather than the simplicity of like the Islamic State example of Muhammad, not this Daesh thing, but the example of Muhammad as somebody who didn't enforce most of religion. When somebody brought a statue to the masjid, or mosque as some people would know it as, what happened there? Oh, he just told them to go home. If somebody wasn't modest enough for the place of prayer, put some more on, or maybe he just presumed they were poor. A lot of presuming that people just don't have the means, and going back to that would sort of help. Certain countries that wouldn't make as much sense. I've been to places where they have a thobe or a headscarf, or they have stuff to just to help people with that in the masajid themselves. There are certain pseudo-states. We all know the Saudis are Jewish. Well, we don't, but maybe none of my audience does, but the Saudis are one of the top 10 wealthiest families in the world, and they are Jewish in origin, but they're not known for practicing Judaism. But their rule isn't according to Ibn Abdul Wahhab